Hello everyone, welcome to the English classroom. So in this video we are going to continue our chapter, The Price of Flowers. So hope you remember the first part in which we got introduced with the character and we began the story, right? So you remember the character Maggie, right? Alice Clifford Margaret, who is 13 or 14 years old girl, and she's the central character of the story, and she works as a typist there in a civil service office. And the other character is Mr. Gupta, who is an Indian and currently works in London. And the other one is Mrs. Clifford, Maggie's mother, and the unseen character, Mr. Frank, who is Maggie's brother. Okay, so Gupta pays a visit to Maggie's house and they show him a ring that was presented to Maggie by her brother on her birthday, which was said to be a holy ring, a sacred ring, right? Because they thought that there was a crystal on the ring, and they believed that if you concentrate on a person and look at the ring, look at the crystal, and you can see the person and what he's doing, what is happening to him, all these things can be seen there on the ring. That's what they believed, and they thought that it will be possible only if you are an Indian, especially a vegetarian, right? That's why from the beginning itself we see Maggie was in search of a vegetarian from India. That's how she met Gupta, and we know all the story, right? Currently, Gupta came to Maggie's house to visit her mother, and they talked a lot of things, and they showed the ring to Mr. Gupta, and they wanted him to look at the ring and say what happened to her brother, Mr. Frank. And actually, Gupta didn't believe things like this, right? He knew that it is a superstition. That's why he says he knew that superstition is not confined to India. It is not only in India, it's a universal thing, it's an international thing, right? Okay, anyway, so he was, as they said, he concentrated, he stared at the ring for a long time, but he could see nothing. At last, he gave up his venture, this one, and he said, I couldn't see anything, right? That's where we stopped. So before we continue the chapter, I recommend you all to read the remaining part of the chapter till the end. After finishing your reading, you can start watching the video, then it will be very effective for you, right? Okay, anyway, let's go. Read from Urged by Mrs. Clifford and Maggie, I took the ring into my hand, in page number 57 till the end of this story. Okay, urged by Mrs. Clifford and Maggie, I took the ring into my hand and stared at it intensely for a long time. I cannot see anything, I exclaimed at last, giving up. So as they urged, as they forced him to have a look at the ring, he took the ring in his hand and he looked, but he could see nothing. And he said, I couldn't see anything, and he gave up the venture. And what happened then? The mother and daughter were disappointed. Both of them, Maggie and Mrs. Clifford, were disappointed. To change the subject, I said, here is a violin. Is it yours? It is yours, isn't it, Maggie? So he wanted to change the topic, right? So he said, oh, here is a violin. Is it yours, Maggie? Yes, Mrs. Clifford answered. Maggie plays quite well. Maggie, please play something for us. Mrs. Clifford says Maggie plays violin very well, and she requests Maggie to play something. Oh, mother, Maggie looked at her in protest. Maggie, I pleaded. Gupta requested Maggie, please play something. I'm very fond of violin. I like violin very much. I have a sister at home about your age. She used to play for me. I have a sister at home. She's about your age and she plays violin for me. And can you play like it? Use the way I play is not at all worth listening to, Maggie said. I do not play quite very well. Mine is not that much good to be listened, she says. And my entreaties at last persuaded her to play. My requests encouraged her to play. So as per my request, she accepted. She agreed to play. I do not know many pieces. She said, what would you like to hear? So I do not know many things. Anyway, what would you like to hear? Which one do you want to listen? Shall I choose something? All right, then give me your music. Let me see what you have. Okay, if I can choose something, let me have a look at your music book and I'll select one and you can play them. Okay, that's what Gupta says. And Maggie brought out an old music case bound in black leather. I opened it. Most of the pieces were light airs like Goodbye Dolly Gray, Honeysuckle and the Bee, etc. So all these are musics, right? And she bought a music book and these were there in the book. There were a few really good the old-fashioned ones, things like Robin Adair, Annie Laurie, The Last Rose of Summer's musics, right? There were several Scotch songs, so I selected the Bluebells of Scotland, and I handed Maggie the music. Maggie played, and I hummed the tune to myself. So I selected one music, and I gave Maggie. I selected the one, the Scotch one, the Bluebells of Scotland, and Maggie played, and I hummed the music to myself. Okay, when their song was over, I praised her, playing lavishly as I thanked her. So the music was over, and I congratulated her, and I praised her a lot, and I thanked. Maggie has never had an opportunity to study. Mrs. Clifford said. Maggie didn't have any chance to go for studying violin. She has learned what she knows by herself. So what she played now is the result of her self-learning. What she played was her own learning. She did it by herself. If our circumstances ever improve, I shall arrange for her to have lessons. On my way back, I was filled with astonishment. So Mrs. Clifford says, if ever our um, um, circumstances improve, if any improvement is there in our income, I will arrange lessons for her. And Gupta was filled with an astonishment. The incident touched him very deeply. The incident touched me very deeply because he listened to her music, and it was awesome. And when he came to know that what she played was the result of her own effort, she did it by herself, that incident touched him very deeply. 3 months passed. I visited Maggie and her mother several times at their home and took Maggie to see the zoo once. She rode the elephant Indian Raja like all the other boys and girls. How delighted she was. So Gupta frequently visited Maggie at her home, Maggie and her mother, and they were good friends. And Gupta took Maggie to zoo once, and there she could ride an elephant named Indian Raja, and she was very much delighted to have such an opportunity. Okay, so here all this place we can see the characters. Maggie, a child, right? Even though she had to shoulder the responsibility of her family, after all, she's a child. She was delighted. She was enjoying just like all the other boys and girls, right? And at the same time, we can see Gupta also, his brotherly affection towards Maggie, right? Yeah, and all these things can be seen in these incidents. Okay. But no news had come from her brother. Urged by Mrs. Clifford, I went to India House one day and made inquiries. I was told the regiment to which Frank belonged was fighting on the northwest frontier. Mrs. Clifford became extremely worried when she heard it. One day I received a postcard from Maggie. She wrote, Dear Mr. Gupta, my mother is very ill. I have not been able to go to work for a week. We shall be extremely grateful if you take the trouble to come to see us, Maggie. Okay, so for a long time they didn't receive any news from Frank, who is there in India working as a soldier. And so urged by Mrs. Clifford, so Mrs. Clifford, Maggie's mother, always forced him to do some favor for them. And he went to India House one day to inquire about Frank, and he was told, Gupta came to know that the regiment to which Frank belonged was fighting on the northwest frontier. Okay, so what Gupta came to know was Frank was fighting. He was in the regiment. Regiment means a group of soldiers. You already know, right? Regiment means a group of soldiers. So the regiment to which Frank belonged was fighting on the northwest frontier. So they are in fighting northwest border of India. Mrs. Clifford became extremely worried when she heard it. When she came to know that Frank is at war, she was extremely worried. And one day, Gupta received a letter from Maggie in which she requested Gupta to pay a visit to their house, saying that her mother is ill and she couldn't go for work for a week, and they will be very extremely thankful if he could pay a visit. So that's what happened then. Okay, then let's see what happens later. I had told the family with whom I lived about Maggie and her mother. At breakfast, I spoke of the letter. So Gupta was staying at a home with natives and with a family, and he shared all about Maggie and her mother. So he spoke about the letter too. At breakfast, I spoke about the letter Gupta shared about the letter and what was written there in the letter to the family with whom he was living. My hostess said, when you go, take some money with you. The girl has not been able to go to work for a week. So she is requesting you to pay a visit to visit them. And so when you go, don't forget to carry some money with you because the girl was not able to go to work for a week. She had not received any pay. It is probable that they are hard up. It is likely that they are facing very troublesome situation now. After breakfast, I took some money and set out for a Lambeth breakfast. After finishing his breakfast, he took some money and went to Lambeth. I knocked at the door. Maggie opened it. She was looking much pulled down. She was looking very sad. Her eyes were hollow and ringed. Her eyes went inward and ringed. Oh, thank you, Mr. Gupta, she exclaimed when she saw me. It is so kind of you. So seeing Mr. Gupta, she said, you're so kind. You paid a visit. I'm really thankful. She said, okay. How is it your mother, Maggie? I asked. I inquired about her mother. She is sleeping now. Her condition is very serious. The doctor says it is aggravated by her anxiety over Frank. Maggie said that Mrs. Clifford is her condition was very serious, and the reason behind this seriousness was just because of her worry regarding her son Frank. There is no news from him yet. She may not live. I tried to console Maggie, drying her eyes with my handkerchief. Maggie said, there is no more news from my brother, and my mom may not live. Her condition is worse and she may not survive. Then Gupta tried to console, saying something, drying her eyes with handkerchief, so wiping her tears from her eyes. He was trying to console Maggie. Maggie controlled herself with an effort and said, look, here all we can see the maturity of a small girl, right? He controlled herself and said, I have a request to make of you, Mr. Gupta. What is it, Maggie? I asked. Come into the sitting room and I'll tell you, she answered. So look, she's very young, and the condition, you all know what is the context, right? And what is the condition of her mother. And in this situation also, she was able to control herself, and she makes a request. Look, what does she has to say? We tiptoed carefully into the sitting room lest the sound of our footsteps should disturb the sick woman. So they tiptoed, they stealthily walked without making noise. Tiptoe means walking on your toes, right? So that you won't make noise while you walk. You will walk unnoticed, right? So we tiptoed carefully into the sitting room, lest means if we do not do so, the sound of our footsteps should disturb the sick woman. She's sleeping now. If we walk as usual, in a normal way, the sound of our footsteps may disturb and shake her off. I turned when I reached the center of the room and remained standing there. So he walked slowly to the room, and as he reached in the middle, he turned back. And what is it, Maggie? What do you have to say? I repeated my question. Maggie gazed into my face with beseeching eyes. Maggie looked at my face with beseeching eyes, with entreaties, with requesting eyes, beseeching eyes. I waited then. She covered her face with her hands and wept silently. Then she covered her face with her hands and wept. We wept. She was shedding tears, and she wept silently. I was in a fix. I do not know what to do, right? It was such a condition. I can't console her because everybody knows what is her situation, right? So I was in a fix. What could I say to console this child? Her brother was fighting on the frontier. Only God knows whether he was alive or dead. Right, Frank was fighting there, and we do not know if he's alive or not. And the only remaining one was her mother, and her condition is worse. So Gupta does not know how to console the girl. Her mother was the only person she had on earth. If she lost her, what would happen? If Maggie loses her mother too, what will happen? There'll be no one for her to take care of her, right? Where in London could this girl on the threshold of adolescence go? Where will she go? She is on the threshold of adolescence, means yes, in teenage, right? Adolescence is going to be adolescent, right? So where shall she go in the city of London? right? I pulled her hands away from her face. I removed her hands from her face. Maggie, tell me what you wish to me do. What do you want? You can ask me. Tell me what you want to do. If there is anything I can do to help you, I shall not hesitate. Yeah, you can ask me. There is no need of hesitation. Don't feel shy. If there is anything that I can do, I'll do it for you. I won't hesitate, right? So here also we can see the quality of the character, Mr. Gupta, right? His characteristic. Okay, Mr. Gupta, the girl said, I do not know what you will think of the request I'm going to make. Please forgive me if it is very, very wrong. So Gupta, I'm going to make a request, and please forgive me if it hurts you, if it hurts your belief. I do not know how will my request harm you. Anyway, if it is very wrong, please forgive me. She says it beforehand, before she shares what she had to ask. What is it? What do you wish to ask? You come up with it. What do you have to ask? All day yesterday, my mother kept saying that if Mr. Gupta would come and gaze into this crystal, he might learn something about Frank. So yesterday, the whole day, mother was saying that if Gupta comes and watches, if he takes the ring and look at the ring, he may learn something, he may know something about Frank. So her mother's condition was worse because of her worry over her son Frank, right? So we all know that. So because she was saying this, if Gupta comes and once again, if he tries, he may know something. Mr. Gupta is a Hindu. She said, if only he would come. She said, he's a Hindu. He's from India, and so he maybe know something. We cannot do that. We are not from India, right? They believe, and only an Indian can do that. Only an Indian can perform this one. So she hoped if Gupta paid a visit. That's why I wrote you. That's why I wrote you. If you want me to try once more, go and bring me the ring, Maggie. Of course, I'll do it. Then Gupta offered, yes, if that's what you want me to do, you just go and bring the ring. I'll do it. There's no problem. It's no issue. But if you don't say anything again this time, I understood what Maggie meant. I was silent. Then Maggie said, but if you don't see anything again this time, last time when you looked, you didn't see anything, right? And you said you saw nothing. It's clear. But what will happen if you don't see anything this time too? You will say that I don't see anything, right? So I understood what Maggie meant. I was silent. Then Gupta got what Maggie meant. What did she mean? Actually, she wanted that even if he does not see anything there on the ring, he should say that Frank is alive, he is well. That's what she means. Even if he does not see anything on the ring, he should say to the mother that Frank is fine, he's good, he's well, doing well. Right? That's what she wants to listen. Right? Because of the worry over the son, her condition worsened. Right? So this is the only medicine which will make her come back. Okay, I was silent. Mr. Gupta, I have read in books that Hindus are extremely truth-loving. Maggie says, Gupta, I have read in books that Hindus are extremely truth-loving. They love truth a lot. If you could bring yourself to tell mother only once after looking into the crystal that Frank is all right, that he's alive, will it be too much of a lie? So this is what Maggie wanted Gupta to say. After looking at the ring, you have to tell to my mother that Frank is well. So if you say so, would it be a great lie? Would it be a big lie? Will it be very, very wrong? If you say so, will it be very, very wrong? As she spoke, tears streamed from her eyes. As she was speaking, tears was welled from her eyes. So see how matured she acts, right? She treats, she faces things. I thought it over. I thought it again and again. I'm not very virtuous man. Gupta thinks I'm not very virtuous man. I have done my sinful things. I have done so many sinful things. Right? So telling lies is not a new thing for me. So I decided to do this. So Gupta decided to tell a lie. Right? Do you think we all know that telling lie is not a good habit. But there are times when lie is better than truth. There are times, right? When a single lie, when a harmless lie can bring a person to life, then the lie is better than the truth. I believe so. What do you think? Yes. Okay, anyway. So I decided to do this. It would be the least of my offense. So if I do this, it is a very silly thing. I have done my own sinful things, right? Please, Maggie, don't cry. Where is the ring? Let me take a good look at it this time. You bring the ring, let me take a good look this time. I may be able to see something. If I do not see anything, I shall do as you suggested. If, again, I do not see anything as we expect, as we hope, then I'll say what you suggested. God will forgive. God will forgive me if it is wrong, if I'm committing a wrong thing. God will forgive me, I believe. That's what Gupta said. Maggie brought me the ring. I took it and said, see if your mother is awake. Maggie brought the ring. He took and said, see if your mother is awake. 15 minutes passed before Maggie came back. Mother is awake. So Maggie went to her mother, and after 15 minutes, she comes back and she says, mother is awake. She said, I have told her you are here. And I informed mother that Gupta has come. May I see her now? Please come. I approached the mother's bedside. The ring was in my hand. Wishing her a good morning, I said. So Gupta approached the mother holding the ring in his hand, and he wished her good morning. And he said, Mrs. Clifford, your son is alive. He is well. Your son is alive. He is well. He is doing good. The old woman raised her head a little off the pillow. The woman who was lying down in her bed raised her head a little off the pillow. Did you see that in the crystal? She asked. Oh, did you see that in the crystal? Yes, Mrs. Clifford. I answered without any hesitation, without second thought. I didn't feel any kind of problem saying this. Without any hesitation, I said, yes, I saw it in the ring. I have seen it. Her head dropped back. Then she again went back. Tears of happiness welled from her eyes. Tears of happiness came from her eyes. She whispered faintly, God bless you, God bless you. She whispered slowly, faintly, God bless you. Mrs. Clifford recovered. It was almost time for me to return to my country. I wished to go to Lambeth to say goodbye to Maggie and her mother, but the family was in mourning. So after the day, after this incident, after Gupta saying this lie, Mrs. Clifford recovered. She came back to life. It was almost time for me to return to my country, so it was time for Gupta to come back to India. I wished to go to Lambeth to say goodbye to Maggie and her mother. Gupta actually, he wanted to visit Maggie and her mother to say goodbye, but what happened? But the family was in mourning. They were in mourning. Mourning means they were passing through the days when they, after the death of some near ones, right? So her brother Frank was dead. They came to know that, and they were mourning. Frank had been killed in the fighting on the frontier. Frank was killed. A month ago, Maggie had sent me a card with a black border. A month ago, Maggie had sent him a card with black border. I calculated from the date and found that Frank had been dead some days when I told his mother he was alive and well. So as per the date, as he went through the letter, he came to know that Frank had been already dead. When he said to her mother that Frank is good and alive and well, by then he was dead, actually. I felt ashamed to face Mrs. Clifford. So Gupta felt ashamed because he said, Mrs. Clifford, that Frank was alive and well after his death, actually. It was after his death, and so he felt ashamed to face them. So I wrote a letter to them announcing my departure and bidding them goodbye. So Gupta wrote a letter to Maggie saying that I'm going to depart, I'm going to leave this country for my country, and he said goodbye to them through the letter. The morning of my last day in London dawned. I was to leave before night. As I was breakfasting with the family, there was a knock at the door. A minute or two later, the maid came in and announced, please, Mr. Gupta, Miss Clifford has come to see you. Okay, then he was able to leave for India, and the day came. He was able to leave before night, before it is getting late. So as he was having his breakfast, there was a knock at the door, and 1 or 2 minutes later, the maid came and said, there is a visitor for you, Gupta. And it is Miss Clifford. Maggie has come to visit you. My breakfast was unfinished. Maggie had come to say goodbye, lest she be late for office because of me. So he left the breakfast unfinished because if he wanted to finish the breakfast, it would take time and Maggie will be late for her office. I took the permission of my hostess and got up from the table. Maggie was standing in the hall. She was wearing black. So getting permission from her hostess, he left his breakfast unfinished and he went to meet Maggie, and she was there in the hall and she was wearing black as part of mourning, right? Okay. I took her into the adjoining library and made her sit down. I took her to the nearby library and I made her sit. Are you leaving today? She asked. Are you leaving? Yes, Maggie, today is the day of my departure. Yes. How long will it take you to reach your country? How long will it take? A little more than 2 weeks. Yeah, it will take more than 2 weeks. In what part of the country do you live? In what part of India do you live? I have entered the Punjab Civil Service. I shall not know exactly where I am posted until I arrive there. So I have been posted there in Punjab as the civil service, in civil service. Okay. And I do not know exactly which place, anyway, in Punjab. That's what I know. Gupta said. Okay. Is the frontier very far from there? No, not very. She asked, Maggie asked if the border is very far from your place. No, it's not. Actually, he does not know where he's posted, right? Still, he says, no, not very. Frank is buried at Fort Monroe near Dera Ghazi Khan. The girl's eyes were filled with tears as she spoke. Then she said her brother Frank was buried there in Fort Monroe near Dera Ghazi Khan, a place name, right? And her eyes were filled with tears as she spoke. When I go to that part of the country, I shall visit your brother's grave and write to you. Then Gupta offered that if I visit that place, if I go to that part of the country, I will surely visit your brother's grave and I'll write you. It won't be troublesome for you or inconvenient, Maggie asked. Won't it be troublesome or inconvenience for you? Maggie asked, why should it be? Dera Ghazi Khan is not very far from where shall I be, where I shall be. Why should it be inconvenient? That place is not very far from where I shall be. Actually, he does not know where he will be posted, but he shows his readiness to help Maggie. Right. It's not very far from where I shall be. It will certainly be possible for me to go there someday. I'll be possible to go there someday. It's sure. I'll write and I'll write and tell you all about it. Right, I'll tell you after visiting the place. I'll tell you about my visit. Everything I'll be writing to you. Maggie's face was filled with gratitude. Her face was filled with thankfully she looked. As she thanked me, her voice choked. As she thanked, she couldn't complete her words. It choked. She was weeping, right? She took a shilling out of her pocket and put it down on the table in front of me. Then she took a shilling. Shilling is a currency of Britain, right? Old currency. Okay, shilling out of her pocket and put it down on the table in front of me, saying, please buy flowers with this shilling when you go and lay them on my brother's grave for me. She says, offering the shilling, please buy flowers with this amount and lay the flowers on the grave of my brother for me. So this is the price of flowers. Do you think the flower is the price that she offers is 1 shilling? And we all know that she was earning very meager amount, right? Very less. And from that less amount, she kept this money to spend for her brother who is not present here. He's in India, right? So she offered this shilling and asked him to buy flowers and lay it on the grave of her brother for her. In my emotion, I lowered my eyes. I felt very sad. That happens, right? A younger girl offers money to buy flowers to be placed on her elder brother's grave. It's really a difficult situation, right? The child had earned the shilling with so much toil. She was working, she couldn't go to school, and she worked so hard to make both ends meet, right? To find the livelihood of her family. And from that meager earning, she has kept this amount. I felt like returning it to her. Gupta thought I should return this money to her because Gupta, 1 shilling is not too much for Gupta. And explaining that in our country, flowers grow in great profusion and do not have to be purchased. Saying that in our country, flowers are very cheap, and because it grows in profusion, it in plenty, you can get flowers there in my country, so I do not need this amount to buy flowers. So I thought of returning the amount to Maggie, but I reconsidered. But I thought it again. Why should I deprive her of the joy this sacrifice would give her? Why should I deprive her the joy, the happiness? When she offers this amount to buy flower, this gives her a kind of happiness that at least this I could do for my brother. She is doing a great sacrifice actually by offering 1 shilling, right? And this sacrifice must give her a happiness, right? Then why should I deprive her of the joy this sacrifice would give her? This sacrifice will definitely give her happiness. At least I could spend as an amount for my brother, and I'm pleased for that. So why should I deprive her of this happiness? All that this 1 shilling could have given her, she was foregoing for the love of her brother. All this 1 shilling can give her to show what is the depth of her love towards her brother. The joy of doing it was beyond all price. The money with which he was going to buy the flower is not just 1 shilling. The price of the flowers was beyond that, right? Because her heart, her hard work, her toil shows that the money, the price of the flower is beyond that. The joy of doing it was beyond all price. The grief in her heart would be eased a little. She's very much sad about her brother, right? So by accepting this money, it may give her some kind of relief. What good would it do to deprive her of it? So if I say, no, I don't need this money, what good is there? If I ask her, you can take the amount, I shall buy flowers with my own, will it give her any kind of happiness? Of course not. She won't have the happiness of sacrificing something for dear one, right? I picked up the 1 shilling. Maggie, I said, I shall use this 1 shilling to buy flowers and put them on your brother's grave. I shall buy flowers with this amount and I'll put it on your brother's grave. That's what Gupta said. Okay. Maggie stood up. How can I thank you? She said. Now it is time for me to go to work. So Maggie stood up and she said, it's time for me to go to my office. I'm very much thankful to you. Goodbye. Remember to write. Don't forget to write. I got up and took her hand in mine. Gupta got up and took her hand in his. Goodbye, Maggie. God bless you. I said and pressed her hand to my lips. Gupta took her hands to his lips. Maggie left. I wiped a tear or two from my eyes. Gupta wiped 1 or 2 drops of tear from his eyes and went upstairs to pack my bags. After that, he went upstairs to pack his bags to leave for his country. That's the story, the price of flowers. How do you feel? Did you enjoy? Did you like the story? Of course, this story will touch your heart, right? Especially when you empathize with the character, especially when you are a little girl and you have an elder brother, right? So anyway, hope you enjoyed the story, and I don't think you loved the ending. You think that Frank shouldn't have died, right? I too think so. We shouldn't have made her sad, right? Such a smart girl. Okay, anyway, hope you loved the story. We completed the chapter, The Price of Flowers. You have to read the chapter again, and as I said in the beginning, you will be asked to prepare character sketch of Maggie, Gupta, Mrs. Clifford. Right, the notes have been given. Go through the notes, take down important points. Understood? Okay, that's all about today's lesson. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.